Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to the last days. I'm Laura-Lynn Tyler Thompson, and today we are making our way across to Savannah, and that is way across on the East Coast. Really fun, getting a lot warmer. I do not need my winter coat or my fur coat or mucklucks any longer that I was wearing in the colder parts of the United States of Canada. I mean, the United States of Canada. Oh, that's probably not what this is. Yeah. Would that be funny? Some people say that, the United States and Canada are beginning to feel a little bit more joined with this freedom movement because we all want freedom. But I'm not certain that Canada's getting anywhere closer. We talked yesterday very briefly about Trudeau joining with Jagmeet Singh, basically bringing two left-leaning and lefter-leaning parties together in order to hornswoggle our entire country. Not good. Many of us have not eaten in restaurants like real people now in Canada for many, many months, and it's quite tyrannical, and we've had enough. Today, one of my very most favorite all-time people in the world is Dr. Peter McCullough, and he is going to join us. I just want to thank him for his bravery, thank him for continuing to speak out whenever we are in front of a crowd of Canadians or Americans. Dr. Peter McCullough's name garners a huge, resounding applause, and that is because he's one of the most courageous men on this planet. And so thank you very much, Dr. McCullough, for joining us. It is a real privilege and an honor to have somebody with your expertise that continues to speak the truth. How are you doing today? How is your world going?
Good. It's great to be back on the program with you, and welcome to our country. I know you're a dual citizen, and you can hear the sucking sound of Canadians rushing across the border, all of them that can, coming to the United States. And in the United States, there is an incredible variation in terms of pandemic response and freedom. So as you're heading to Florida, Florida's been open throughout the pandemic, as well as Texas, two of the most populated states in the country. We've never closed down. We go out to restaurants, we don't wear masks. We don't have any worries whatsoever. Yet the pandemic has been the same everywhere. I was in Manhattan and some guy tried to shake me down for a vaccine card in order to go up an elevator. Or when we were in Washington for the Defeat the Mandates rally on January 23rd, we were in DC. We couldn't get a cup of coffee without a vaccine card. But yet we go a couple miles into Virginia with no masks, no cards, and we got as much coffee or anything we wanted as we want. So when people see, Americans and Canadians see variation in pandemic response policy like that, they should understand that something is wrong. Something is in the minds of people in some places where they are overreaching, probably out of fear or what we call mass formation psychosis. So as a brief update, we had to defeat the mandate rally in Washington. I was the first medical speaker. About 35,000 individuals that walked from the Washington Monument to Lincoln Memorial. And I gave a speech on the steps of Lincoln Memorial. But we had a great lineup of speakers: Pierre Corey, Ryan Cole, Richard Urso, Robert Malone, Del Bigtree, Robert F. Kennedy, and the list goes on and on. It wasn't just doctors, but there were firefighters and various religious groups, all resonating around freedom, that if anything that can bring us forward is freedom. And I listened very carefully. In fact, I paused a couple times. No counter protests, none. There wasn't a single person out there that thought the vaccine should be mandated on someone else. And I think what's clear now is where there's risk, there must be choice.
Wow, that's so wonderful to hear you say that, and I agree. I think that the movement is growing, especially of even those that are vaccinated. Many of the truckers that were involved in the Ottawa event, they had been people that had, for one reason or another, they decided that they would get vaccinated, but then they weren't counting on the 100 million boosters that Trudeau has invested in. And so now the movement's growing. They're like, you know what? I didn't really look into it, and I got my two, but I'm not going for the boosters. So the other thing that continues to push forward in Canada is shots for children. And I wonder if I could get your thoughts on that.
Well, we have the data now. The CDC has the data. The first author is House and colleagues, published in MMWR, December 31st issue. This is the CDC data, and it's not good. For children aged 5 to 11, the reactions were serious. The ones that the doctors had recorded with the CDC doctors, particularly, they had a subgroup of 100. For the first time, 15% of them had blood test indicating heart damage, troponin being elevated. We've never seen heart damage in children before puberty like this. And then we had the data from the VSafe. The VSafe database is what the parents report. And the parents reported roughly 15% of children were physically incapacitated by taking the vaccine. So we know children of this age, in the randomized trials, there was no clinical benefit. The randomized trials in the paper by Walther and colleagues demonstrated a reduction in the binary endpoint of COVID-19 illness, but that represented a runny nose, which the kids are going to have a couple times a year anyway. So no clinical benefit with the vaccine, and then harm. And what we've seen now over the last few months has the literature has poured in on vaccine injuries and deaths. We now have over 1,000 peer-reviewed papers in the preprint server or the fully published National Library of Medicine, 1,000 of them describing a range of vaccine injury syndromes, cardiovascular, neurologic, hematologic, and immunologic, including fatal cases of myocarditis. A paper by Gill and colleagues from Connecticut, and they had pathologists weigh in from the University of Minnesota and University of Michigan. Clearly, 2 boys, teenagers, died on days 3 and 4 after the second Pfizer shot. Parents were horrified because they found their children at home dead, and they wisely got autopsies. The autopsies confirmed, in fact, the vaccines were the cause of death, fatal heart inflammation. And there was a superimposed effect of what's called catecholamines or adrenaline. And this is interesting. And we're not sure of the details, if the boys had played basketball or had some sporting exertion, or whether or not it was in the throes of death. They actually each died alone. This is really tragic. And the first manifestation, by the way, was death. So this is very important for parents to understand. They may not have a chance to save their children if they take the vaccines. Clearly, the mothers and fathers didn't hear. But this overlay of catecholamine toxicity on the histopathology of the heart was very interesting. And it fits together. Lead physician in Brazil, Flavio Catagiani, has published a very insightful paper pointing out that this explains the record number of athletes dying on the field, that in fact most probably have taken the vaccine, and whether they have overt or subclinical heart inflammation, it's the surge of adrenaline that is the trigger for death, the record numbers of deaths. And we've seen it all. By the way, we've had 2 very visible tennis examples. One was Djokovic in Australia. So listen, he's not taking the vaccine, doesn't like the side effect profile, doesn't think it's going to help him. Then you had Rafael Nadal, who now came off the court with chest pain, difficulty breathing, don't know his vaccine status. But I tell you, every single death and every single set of these conditions that happen in young people, the first question we must ask is should they get the vaccine? What just came up on my social media feed is sadly the death of Sarah Beth Hartledge, age 36. She was the vaccine czar, the coordinator of vaccination for the state of Kentucky. She goes off to a scientific meeting and then suddenly dies. And I can tell you, a cause of sudden death can be myocarditis, but also can be blood clots. And the blood clots in what's called fatal pulmonary embolism. So with all the life insurance companies reporting in, dozens of them, with record numbers of actuarial deaths, far more than expected. Almost every life insurance company now reporting in, both in North America, United States, Canada, and in Europe. This question is going to come up. Did they take one of the COVID-19 vaccines? We know the rates of death after vaccination are far higher than could be possibly acceptable. Through the Freedom of Information Act in the U.S. court system, Pfizer, under pressure, has released the first tranche of data. Pfizer knew within 90 days of release of their vaccine, there was 1,223 deaths reported to Pfizer by doctors and hospitals that thought the vaccine did it. And Pfizer sat on these deaths, didn't tell anybody, didn't pull the product off the market. Now there's extraordinary public viewing of this. Many are calling for Pfizer to just pull the product off the market. It's unacceptable. Typically 50 unexplained deaths, the product's off the market.
Wow. Do you think that there's any chance that that will happen? It seems like no matter what kind of data we get, we've been sounding the alarm. Doctors like yourself and Dr. Paul Alexander, great doctors telling the truth, and yet nobody's doing anything. Fauci's on television today talking about how he thinks another variant's coming and we should be preparing ourselves.
I think the only court that's open right now is the Court of Public Appeals. And, basically the public opinion now is reigning. Vaccination rates in the United States are the lowest they've ever been. We know that anybody who's not taken a shot since October is effectively unvaccinated, since the vaccines don't last 6 months. So my eyeball estimate is based on the weekly rates of vaccination, the vast majority, probably 250 million Americans, are effectively unvaccinated right now. And they're not coming forward for boosters. And many of the employers and colleges haven't done a good job on who needs a booster, who doesn't, not keeping track. It's really a helter-skelter system. I don't know what you have in Canada, but in the United States, they actually have handwritten vaccine cards that are not barcoded. Can you imagine that? You can't even read the lot numbers on these cards. So there's no reconciliation. If you were going to build an important social credit system or a vaccine passport system, the unit of carry right now is the most inept from an IT perspective you can possibly imagine. So it is really crumbling in the United States. I think there are some people reluctantly taking vaccines, but they're angry, and they're very angry when they get injured or have side effects. And so that's the reason, I think, the reason why there's a burgeoning number of side effects. Now, I had a chance, interestingly, to be filmed in a documentary from a UK group. And they came over and they wanted my viewpoints. And I had a chance to ask them, who else have you interviewed? And it turns out they had interviewed the public health leaders that you mentioned in the United States. So they had already interviewed them. So I asked them, I said, well, what do they think? Well, what is their core belief? Why would you, still want to pursue mass vaccination with these safety data and with the loss of efficacy? And the answer was very interesting. The answer was the belief system of those who are promoting the vaccines is the following: that the vaccines really don't work. They don't work unless everybody takes them. Every single last person, including every last little child, every baby, everybody takes the vaccines on a regular basis continuously. That's the only way the vaccines really work.
And we certainly don't want to do that.
Well, that's their belief system. And obviously, many people can't take the vaccines. In fact, we've just had a new U.S. entry into our system from AstraZeneca. It's called Evusheld. Evusheld, combination of tixagevimab and silgevimab. These are long-lasting IgG1 kappa monoclonal antibodies. We give them as an injection, an intramuscular injection, 300 milligrams, and then of 150 milligrams follow-up in 6 months. And this is actually prevents COVID-19. So it's not a treatment, it's a replacement for the vaccine. And who is it indicated for? It's indicated for the immunocompromised and those who can't take the vaccines, those with various severe reactions. I've already had, within a couple of days, I've already had a flood of patients interested in Evusheld. So we're going to have competing products to the vaccines. We have new treatments, including Paxlovid from Merck, from Pfizer, Molnupiravir from Merck, new treatment monoclonal antibodies, bortezomib from Lilly. We've been using sotorivimab from GSK. So the bottom line is the pharmaceutical offering for COVID-19 is so broad now. There's so many products under EUA. The vaccines are not going to take this kind of solo run position. And we're seeing big employers back off. Starbucks has dropped it. GE, FedEx never had a program going. We've seen United Airlines. They tried to force it on the workers. They sat out and they finally said, come back to work. Most of the healthcare employers in the United States just broadly offered exemptions. People didn't want the vaccines. There's been a few employers that have gone all the way, like Houston Methodist, and they end up having an outbreak of COVID-19 and they're fully vaccinated workers. So, they didn't get anywhere for that.
That's just shocking.
Yeah. So I think as you see things going forward, public opinion will prevail.
I hope so. In Canada, for instance, in the province of British Columbia, Dr. Bonnie Henry is insisting that the doctors, dentists, physiotherapists, doctors are fully vaccinated by March 24th was the last thing that I heard. I hope that she's backtracking on that. I've been a little bit out of the country, but that was her thing. And we've had a dentist come forward. He's just furious. They're banding together. I mean, I'm envious of what the United States is doing, because in Canada, we have this tyrannical leadership. They have invested. I don't know if they're getting money. I don't know if it's payoffs, but no matter what kind of data, this amazing data that you're putting forward that is coming, into the public eye, no matter what, they seem to be doing their own thing and forcing these vaccines onto the population.
Well, I can tell you this much. If there was an outbreak of meningococcemia and it was a meningococcal vaccine, everybody would just line up out in front of the hospital and take their shot. I would. Same thing with hepatitis B. We have plenty of safe vaccines. So the problem is not taking a vaccine. The problem is the COVID-19 vaccines. They're genetic, they're experimental, there's large numbers of deaths and non-fatal injuries. They're frankly unsafe, and everything we learn about these vaccines becomes more disturbing. We've learned recently a paper from Stanford, Holken and colleagues, published in Cell, that the messenger RNA is stuck in the body for at least a couple months, stuck in the lymph nodes. You don't get rid of this stuff. So shot one, by the time you get shots two, you've never even gotten shot one out of the body. The spike protein that's produced from these vaccines, it can be lethal in high doses or in the wrong place. The spike protein it takes over a year to clear that out of the body. Can you imagine accumulating this stuff that creates disease, muscle aches, all the various neurologic phenomenon, brain fog, tinnitus, ear ringing, hearing loss? I mean, the list goes on and on. That stuff's in your body for over a year after the vaccine. I can tell you the word is out. No one wants these vaccines. In the United States, we've had about 2/3 of Americans take the vaccine. And I characterize basically my patients in the country as follows. A third never took it. They're not going to. A third of people took the vaccine and they regret it. They're not taking boosters. They regret it. They took it early on. They realized it was a mistake. And then a third took the vaccines and they've bought into it. And they're going to take as many boosters as they can. So in that group is White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki, fully vaccinated and boosted. She had COVID-19 in the fall, probably the Delta variant. And now she just canceled the European trip because she's got Omicron. She's got COVID-19 again. I mean, that should be quite visible to Americans. The vaccines don't work. They don't stop COVID. Former President Obama, fully vaccinated and boosted. He tweeted, he's got COVID. Then he tweets out something that's irrational. He says, it's a good reason to take the vaccine. No, it isn't. The vaccine is actually to prevent COVID. The FDA has only granted one claim, that the vaccines are indicated to prevent COVID. The vaccines have not been demonstrated to reduce hospitalization and death to win an FDA claim. In fact, in the poorly published Pfizer dossier in New England Journal of Medicine in September of 2021, there's more deaths with Pfizer than there is with placebo. So the vaccines will never get a claim to reduce mortality, and they haven't gotten a claim to reduce hospitalization. We have data across the UK, across Europe, South America, South Africa, and Israel, showing the majority of people hospitalized with COVID-19 have been vaccinated, boosted or triple boosted. In fact, data from the UK show the more shots that are taken, the worse the COVID gets. There's a belief that maybe all this messenger RNA and spike protein is weakening the immune system to the point where they're even greater susceptibility and greater, expression of virulence in the virus. And so now the breaking story out of South Korea, relatively few cases so far, has the largest number of cases and the largest numbers of deaths. They're 93% fully vaccinated and boosted. It should be clear the vaccines are failing.
Wow, that is absolutely shocking information. And thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, it just boggles the mind that we have to even keep talking about this, because it's so bad. Could you, as you close, thank you so much for your time. Anything that you can tell us is incredible. But natural immunity, then, what are we seeing? Is that going to be the gold standard? When will be the day when actually we'll appreciate that we have natural immunity? And what about people who might have natural immunity who end up getting a blood transfusion or something like that? I don't know if any steps are being taken to protect people from mingling, blood of people who've got this problem because they've taken the vaccine, and those who've got natural immunity.
In the United States, the CDC had estimated that 146 million out of 330 million Americans by October had COVID-19. The official case count's about 80 million, but there's so many more that don't get a test. Or nowadays, you can buy a test in the pharmacy over the counter. So the positive test is never registered with anybody. So we've had a large fraction. When I do public programs, I ask for a show of hands. About 80 to 90% of people have been through the illness now. That means they have natural immunity. Now, natural immunity held up pretty good all the way through the Delta variant, but Omicron broke through. Natural immunity in a paper from Qatar, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, is still about 60% protective against the Omicron variant. So again, if someone's had COVID-19, if they get Omicron, it's going to be very mild, like a runny nose for a day or two, viral malaise. Someone who's still susceptible, it can be a more severe syndrome. Omicron clearly broke through vaccine immunity. But what you're getting to is that every employer, every school, the military, if there's going to be a checkbox, it shouldn't be for the vaccine. It should be for whether or not you've had COVID-19. Just like in the olden days for chickenpox. Mothers used to keep track of who had chickenpox because that told them who's still susceptible and who can't get it. And the bottom line is, I work for a large employer, a cardiology practice in Dallas. We have a checkbox on our employment forms. Did we have COVID or not? And that checkbox is important. Do you know I've had calls with the NHL, the NFL, the U.S. military? They don't have the checkbox on whether or not someone's had COVID. They're not checking the most important box. How do they figure out their Delta force? How do they figure out their A team? They have to figure out who's already had the illness and who's not going to have a severe case. I mean, once you've recovered from COVID, you basically have a great freedom from the risk of hospitalization and death. It's going to be like a mild cold if you get it again.
So do you think that this talking point about pitting the vaccinated against the unvaccinated and all of that that's going on, that's just pure nonsense, and it's just segregating society, because they are still doing that. And our prime minister has literally had hate speech towards those that just do not choose to be vaccinated. It's a shocking thing for us, and we actually feel quite traumatized, I would say.
I know. I remember a month or two ago, media figure Howard Stern said that the unvaccinated should just be left to die and not receive any healthcare treatment. And my view as a doctor, honestly, is that I take care of drug abusers, alcoholics, obese diabetics. I take care of everyone without prejudice, without divisiveness, and whether or not someone has taken the vaccine, they deserve treatment anyway. Remember, anybody who's taken the vaccine last summer, they're unvaccinated now. That striped. The vaccine is not like a permanent tattoo. It's not a permanent mark. The vaccine is a very temporary thing that only lasts a few months, and then someone is basically unvaccinated again. So it's very hard to divide a line on who's, quote, vaccinated and who's unvaccinated.
Wow, that's such a good point. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter McCullough. Thank you for what you're doing in our country. I know that you have had to pay a very dear price. Are you coming through any troubles that you've had in speaking out, as other doctors are, experiencing the same kinds of things?
Public support has been tremendous worldwide. I'm still working through a lawsuit where the courts appear to be corrupt. Motions aren't even heard. Mediation isn't resolved. There just seems to be a desire to just drag things out forever. It's almost like the vaccine program being drug out forever. There doesn't appear to be any interest in closure. President Biden has threatened to veto a motion in the Senate to basically end the emergency phase of the pandemic. I've told America, I was at the CPAC meeting, I told America, the emergency phase is over with. The emergency phase was defined as overflowing the hospitals. We're nowhere close to that now. The hospitals are secure. The emergency is over with. We need to end this. There needs to be finality to this and then move on. We'll have some residual cases, but the doctors can handle this and the public can go on with their lives.
You're a real blessing. Thank you, Dr. McCullough. Thanks for the time you spent with us. We love you. Say hello to your dual citizen Canadian wife. God bless.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it is always a pleasure to talk with him, and very grateful for all that information. Every time that I hear from Dr. McCullough, I really wonder how he's able to recite all that information just like lickety-split right off the top of his head. It's absolutely amazing. One of the things that I think ongoing is, even as we get more information about the vaccines and those become something of the past, we do know that that the digital ID is still, that's the real heart of this now. They've used these vaccines and the Vax Passes as a trial run for something greater, and it's going to be affecting our money. I want to play for you a clip that it's with our good friend Joe Rogan. He kind of put this together, and I want you to see where this is going. And he calls it terrifying, and I concur. I think it's a bit terrifying, but always remember, we're never going to be terrified. We're going to trust that God is in full control, and he's going to give us ways and means around this. Take a look.
So the UK is currently the head of the G7 group. That's the world's most economically advanced countries. And the UK currently chairs the G7 group. Our Chancellor, who does our economy, called Chancellor of the Exchequer, his name's Rishi Sunak. He put out this video saying that what they want to do is bring in this thing called the central banking digital currency. They want to replace fiat paper money with digital money as a competitor to Bitcoin and crypto money, right? But instead of being decentralized currency, it will be controlled by a government. It's digital currency, but controlled centrally through the banks, Bank of England. So instead of having a bank account with whatever, HSBC or Bank of America, you'll have a bank account directly with, in the American context, with the Fed. In the UK, directly with the Bank of England. You have a personal bank account, and you're given digital money in that bank account. These are called central banking digital currencies. The Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK has already announced their intention to do this as the G7 group. And these, if you look up...
this sounds terrifying.
If you look up the Telegraph newspaper...
Central bank digital currency, is that the one down below?
Digital currency should be programmable. See that one there? Yeah? Now, what they're doing is they're saying... You know, everyone knows that with inflation at over 5%, it's now 5.4%, right? Our fiat money, the paper money, is increasingly becoming worthless, and we're headed towards a big disaster. The Fed wants to raise interest rates. But we're in so much debt that if you raise interest rates, people are going to suffer, because we're living on debt as Western economies. So they realize that this kind of the lifespan of paper money is fast coming to an end because of the 2008 economic crash in particular. So they're bringing in these central banking digital currencies. Why is that word programmable in there? So what they said in that article, and the Chancellor put a video out saying this as well, they've said that this money that you will earn from work, instead of having paper money, you have this digital money. It's programmable so that you can't buy certain foods, or if you do something that your employer doesn't like, it's all in that article. You won't be able to spend your money. In other words, it's not money. They're vouchers. They're like food vouchers. And they can be programmed so that, like the Chinese social credit system, that if you try and use them on a certain thing, it won't work. You say you want to buy a burger and they want you to buy bugs, which is one of the examples used. If you start to try and buy unhealthy meat, it just won't work. You tap your card, you can't buy the thing because you've met your quota that month of burgers. You have to buy something like a vegan meal.
So it won't just be money in the sense of the way we have dollars or pounds today.
Yeah.
It'll be something that's controlled in terms of your ability to distribute it.
Which is why I'm calling it a voucher. It's a coupon.
But even a coupon, if you have a coupon to buy bread, you can still buy the bread. Like, there's
But you can't buy, see, that coupon to buy bread, what you can't do is buy a burger with that coupon. It's for bread.
Right.
Yeah?
Right. Do you feel like you're sounding the alarm
Yes.
for people that don't understand what is going on?
So here, I'll pull it up for you here, yeah? So there's the video.
The group of the world's 7 most advanced economies, the G7, is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote.
Right, so that's the guy who runs our economy in the UK. His name's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And here is the article. Bank of England tells ministers to intervene on digital currency programming, yeah? And here's a quote from the article. Digital cash could be programmed to ensure it is only spent on essentials or goods which an employer or government deems to be sensible.
Holy shit.
I'm going to take it one step further for you, Joe, right? So the checkpoint Charlie exists everywhere. They bring in digital banking, central banking digital currencies. You've got a scenario now that you're checking in and out everywhere you go using vouchers that are programmed, and you can only spend where you're told you can spend them. There's another word for that, man. That's called the Chinese social credit system. So what they are telling us, and when I say they, who's they? People in power. That's the head of our economy, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, second most powerful person other than the Prime Minister and maybe the Foreign Secretary in the UK, right? He's telling us, I just played it there for you. He's telling us that's what he, as the UK, the head of the G7, want to bring in for the G7. And if I'm speaking to you the way I'm speaking now, and my employer or government, you heard that in the quote directly, yeah, deems me as saying or doing something inappropriate, suddenly I can't actually pay to come here and speak to you anymore. My digital currency won't even pay for the ticket because it will be known that I'm coming to speak to you. Sorry, your vouchers don't allow you to purchase that ticket to go and speak to Joe.
And this is where we get into the kind of censorship that we see in social media that is not, you can't have that kind of censorship with the First Amendment in normal discourse. But you can have that kind of censorship if you've developed a digital platform that distributes information, but it's a private company.
Yeah.
So think about what money is, where you can spend it on whatever you want, versus this digital currency, which is essentially controlled in a sense.
Yeah.
Like you have free speech on Twitter, but you really don't.
Yeah.
Because if you go too far or you talk about something that they don't find appropriate, they'll just ban your account. That could be what we're looking at in terms of what we think of as free speech being social media platforms could be what we think of as your free range ability to buy whatever you want with whatever money that you've earned.
So what's going on here, right?
There we go. I was giving the signal. So isn't that absolutely incredible? So think about what just happened in Canada, that anyone who was supporting the freedom movement, how ridiculous is all of this? I mean, how absolutely insane is our leadership that they went after the people, the good, hardworking truckers, the people that got in the movement because they also value bodily autonomy, because that's all this was about, is that we do not want to be forced to get these vaccines. And so I'm seeing the beauty of the freedom in America as I'm traveling through it and realizing I'm soon going to be back home in communist Canada. And with in my particular province, British Columbia, Bonnie Henry and our Premier Horgan, who is just a disaster as far as freedom is. And then we have our Prime Minister teaming up with the NDP leader himself, Jagmeet Singh. These two, they don't know science. They don't know nothing. They know power. That's what they know. Jagmeet Singh is about power, and he is smooth and very slick. I saw this when I was in the debates against him with the PPC, which I won against him, and everyone knew that I won. He was just whipped. But you have to go back and watch that. But Jagmeet Singh is like a snake oil salesman. He is he's slippery and he's smooth, and he likes to laugh and use his little thing, his way, and I'm wearing my turban. And I've heard that some of the Sikh people said it's actually, they don't even like the turban he's wearing because you can see it's unusual, right? It's not the kind they mostly wear. No. So they actually don't even like that about him. Interesting. Anyways, there is someone, and they give me so much information on the back deals that are being done. And we've got a problem. We have collusion to deceive our country. And so right in the midst of all of that, we've got this thing going on. So can you imagine? They're trying to break the economies of the world, the economies of different countries. Biden is doing it to the United States of America. And I want to show you, get that Tucker clip ready about after the 2008, the Feds dropped the interest rates to zero and began printing money. So the US is doing it. Canada's doing it. We're in this huge we're in this huge.
Welcome to Tucker Carlson.
Go ahead. Yeah, take it away.
Tonight, you wonder if looking backward many years from right now, historians will notice the remarkable coincidence in timing. Have you noticed? Here it is. At exactly the moment when the emergency powers they awarded to themselves to fight COVID started to wane, our leaders began pushing for conflict with Russia. And then, on the basis of that conflict, they assumed historic war powers. Without even pausing, the Biden administration declared total economic war on a sovereign country. No American had been killed. The United States had not been invaded or attacked. And yet, with no meaningful public debate or congressional authorization, the Biden administration destroyed that country's currency, then removed it from the international banking system that impoverished its population. Then the administration began seizing the property of people affiliated with that country without a trial or due process of any kind, without even bothering to explain exactly what crime they had committed. No American government had ever done anything like that before. If there was one thing the U.S. government long stood for, it was the rule of law. The integrity of the system was always the most important thing, but not anymore. That turned out to be an era, and that era is gone. Because the target is Russia, very few Americans have noticed any of this. They support it. Virtually no one has paused to ask him or herself where this might be going. How long until our leaders do something similar to their domestic enemies here in the United States? How long before they accuse you of collusion or disloyalty or some other hard-to-define crime, declare you an enemy of the state, and then confiscate your bank account? Something very much like that just happened in Canada. We don't imagine it could happen here. Mostly we just don't think about it. What we think about is Ukraine. And that's the other thing that's changed. The tech monopolies now exert a level of control over American public opinion that has no precedent in all of history. Eliminating Section 230 or whatever piddling reform Congress is talking about at the moment, it all seems like a joke at this point. It's too late. The medieval church had less command over a society's emotions than Facebook and Google and Twitter now do. For the past 2 years, you have watched these companies, above all, define who you as an American must hate. Depending upon their directive of the day, our citizens dutifully change their social media avatars, from BLM signs to mask up slogans to now Ukrainian flags. Each is a crisis, and each new crisis is carefully stage managed from Silicon Valley at the direction of the White House. How does the human brain compete with this? How does it understand it? Well, it doesn't. Clarity and perspective become impossible. In the hysteria, even the recent past just evaporates. The morning that Russia invaded Ukraine, you may have been talking about a lot of different things, COVID or crime or the southern border. Not anymore. Much to the relief of the White House, all of those topics have been forgotten, maybe forever. No population has ever been more skillfully manipulated than our population is being manipulated right now. But even with the tech monopolies on the case full time, there are limits. Some topics cannot be hidden, and inflation is one of them. Google can delete all the search results it wants, but you still know what hamburger and gasoline cost because you go to the store. You know exactly how bad inflation is, and it's bad. In fact, inflation is so high right now that even affluent people are worried about it, and not worried in some abstract sense like about the long-term health of the country, though that too. People who make $250,000 a year are worried they will not be able to continue living as they do now. You may or may not feel sorry for them, but let's put it in perspective. Imagine if you made $50,000 a year or $30,000 a year, as many Americans do. You would be terrified in the face of this inflation, and maybe you are.
Well, I'm terrified in the face of all of this.
What is the root of the inflation? If you want to know the answer to that question, the fastest way to get it is to check to see what politicians are denying. Whatever they claim is not the cause of inflation almost certainly is the cause of inflation. And with that in mind, here's Joe Biden telling you that government spending has nothing to do with it.
We're on track right now. I'm on track to be the first president in history to lower the deficit by over $1 trillion in 1 year. So I'm sick of this stuff. We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. Simply not true.
Now you can say, well, that's just Joe Biden. Joe Biden's never had a real job. Even before he became senile, he was reputed to be a dim bulb, and he was. But don't kid yourself. In the clip you just saw, Joe Biden knows perfectly well he's lying. It's simply not true, he squeaks. Really, Joe Biden, how is it simply not true? Notice he doesn't tell you how it's simply not true because, in fact, it is emphatically, unequivocally true. Inflation is a function of money supply. The more money you have in circulation, the less that money is worth. Even Joe Biden understands that. The month after Biden became president, the supply of US dollars in circulation increased more than it ever had before in a single month. And then it kept going higher, month after month after month, as the administration and the Congress kept the money taps open. And that's why we have historic inflation now, because they printed too much money. It's not complicated.
Okay.
But it's not
all right. Okay. So, so that's the United States version. So in Canada, how exactly are we functioning? What are we functioning on when we have debt that is over $1 trillion? I think it's even more now, and we keep giving out money, and Trudeau keeps every week he's giving away, you know, 100 million to this or that. How are we doing this? And so now we have these two that are going to come together that are hungry for money. They don't care about our country. And I mean, Tucker was talking about people who make $250,000. Well, that is not many of us. And if they're having a problem in the United States, and I can say as we travel that the gas prices are soaring every time we go to a new town. It does seem like it's going up and up and up. It is very expensive to eat here. And also, I see that a lot of places are simply shut down. They're just shut down. So they're destroying small business. They're printing money. And where does it all go? Until finally we have to have the Great Reset, and then you have to participate in their digital currency. So I had a fellow from Alberta call me today to, you know, talk about, you know, sort of what's going on and what are the, you know, what can someone do if you've got property, maybe you're a farmer, maybe you've got a little bit of goods, you know, and your family sort of has amassed, you know, some sort of wealth. But if you're under the tyrannical leadership of a government that can at any time overspend and mismanage the economy so incredibly that it devalues the dollar, devalues everything that you have, till, you know, maybe buying a loaf of bread is $100 one day. And then if you get into digital currency and they tell you what you can't and can't buy, and if you're allowed to buy it because, oh, after all, you went to a protest last weekend to protest the tyrannical government, and maybe that's just not acceptable. And so they begin squeezing you and controlling you. So these are some of the things that we have going on. And what's really funny, Aaron, I don't know if you have that there, but it's the Chinese government that is actually making fun of the Canadian government. Do you have that video there? Because it's in the Flipboard. And if you do, just pull that up. And so what's happened lately is that the Chinese government, the way that we've been dealing with people and with our that's not the one, but you know what? Let's go with this. I want to show you this, everybody. Take a look at this is where it's not only about digital currency, but transhumanism coming in and becoming literally like gods. These people want to be God. Take a listen to this guy.
There's a plot going on. Here's yet another prophetic word. Well, don't listen to me. Listen to Klaus Schwab's top advisor. This is his top advisor for Davos, for the World Economic Forum, in his own words.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
Data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself.
So he says, by hacking organisms, the elites will have the power to re-engineer life. So they want to hack organisms. What are you? An organism. So this is Dr. Yuval Noah Harari, a transhumanist. Remember some of my early viral videos, you can go back and search for them, was about transhumanism. Nephilims were transhumans. The Bible talks about that. Genesis chapter 6. There's nothing new under the sun. The book that you've been neglecting explains all this even from the very first pages. The genetic mutilation of organisms, the mixing, right? The vile, illegal mixing and tampering of genetic material is in the Bible. It's what caused Noah's flood. It caused the first end of the world. Second end of the world will not be by water, will be by fire. But it will just repeat itself. It will be the same ideas, which they think they're so proud of that it's new, but all it is Satanism. It's Luciferianism. These people have given themselves over to a false counterfeit religion, and when they speak, listen to them, they will use religious words and they will attack God. They can't help themselves because they're motivated by the dark side.
Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it. Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack.
So did you listen to that? Very soon, some corporations first and governments second. So who's the servant of who? The boss is the corporation. The multinational corporations are the bosses, and the governments are in their pockets already. The governments provide the legal avenue, the legal channel for the corporations to implement the New World Order, which is total control. They're not happy just controlling the richest countries in the world. They want to rape and pillage and plunder all the resources of the world. I mean, this is some vile stuff, talking about hacking human beings and controlling them. It gets worse. Listen to this vile human being advising the World Economic Forum, working for Klaus Schwab.
And if indeed we succeed in hacking and engineering life, this will be not just the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. This will be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life.
Okay, so he doesn't have an ego, does he? He says, if we succeed in doing this hacking of human beings, this would be the greatest thing that has ever happened since life existed in the universe. Pretty modest guy, don't you think? Or he thinks he's God. And he's assuming the role of God. Isn't that what the Bible says the Antichrist will do? He will present himself in the temple of God as God. And the whole world will say, hooray! You say, well, how would that happen? Imagine this is the guy or someone that's working with him. Says, we've done it, the greatest thing in the universe. We now control the blueprint for life. We can now make human beings who will always be healthy. They'll always buy the right thing. They'll buy from this Procter & Gamble corporation. They will always buy Johnson & Johnson shampoo. They'll always be very healthy. We've engineered it for them. You don't have to worry anymore. You'll always drive the right car from now on. Trust us. We're going to hack you and engineer you. And you'll always vote for the right people. We'll make sure of it.
4 billion years ago. For 4 billion years, nothing fundamental changed. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds.
It says we will replace evolution with an evolution by accident, really, with evolution by design. Now, every creation ministry talks about we are intelligently designed. We were created by intelligent design. So he made sure that everyone knew he was attacking that creator. He said, we're going to start making intelligence by design, but not the design of some guy up there in the cloud.
Evolution by natural selection is evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution. Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science.
In this time of crisis, you have to follow me, he says, because you have to follow science. And what has science been wrong about? Which is nothing at all. Never been wrong. Fauci's never been wrong about anything, right? You have, in this crisis, don't let a crisis go to waste, you have to follow science. They've been grooming people for years, especially in the Western world. You don't follow morality, you don't follow your family, you got to follow unknown strangers who come in white coats, riding a white horse. That's the first horse.
Okay.
It's often
All right. So I first saw that video of the right-hand guy to Klaus Schwab about a week or so ago, and I just liked the way that this guy sort of unpacked it as he went along. So they think they're gods, they're little gods, and they're having fun, and they have power, and they've got some knowledge, and they want to mess with humanity. One of the videos that we played today, one of the things that it was the Joe Rogan video, and I hope that you'll go and see it. You can see everything that we put up on the show resources. The Flipboard, Aaron has studiously put everything in there so that you can see it. He does go on to say that what we have on our side in this epic time of deception, what we have on our side is the internet. We have independent producers. We have people who are willing to speak the truth. We have the resources and the mass of people. So they might have some power, and they put their information out. They've got a lot of money behind all that they're doing, and they're coming up with schemes. These are schemes of man to control man, to actually literally change the DNA. Wouldn't the enemy want that? If I was the devil, I'd want to destroy mankind for sure. I'd want to change it forever, wipe out an entire, nation of people through all these strange and weird things that they're doing. Take away the humanity, make them part machine. I guess that's a good way, to destroy a whole bunch of people. But God's in full control. God's not going to let that happen to everybody. And one of the things that we can bank on is that everything that is happening right now is also God's design. So the internet can be used for good. It can also be used for evil. So let's use it for good. Let's spread the word. Press share on your page right now. I am being stifled on Facebook like you would not believe. So please, it's important that you keep sharing all this information. It's worth it. I want to remind you that this weekend there will be a Freedom Worship Rally, and that will be in the Pitt Meadows location. You can go to my Facebook page to get all that information. And also, please get on my I have a newsletter that goes out. So if you ever miss anything, you can see it there. We send out all of the shows that we've been doing on the newsletter, and all we need is your email. We have thousands and thousands of people now receiving these newsletters, and every once in a while somebody says, where'd you go? You haven't been on Facebook. What's happened? And of course, when you're knocked off Facebook, you can't say a word. So when I have these newsletters, I have all the information up. March 27th coming up at 6 p.m. at the Pitt Meadows location. You will be able to enjoy a massively great service. We have a gentleman by the name of Eli Miller who is going to be sharing the word, a very powerful word. This man can teach the Bible like nobody's business, and I really love him. You're going to love his heart. He has a father's heart. Very, very good man. So set some time aside for yourself to be able to enjoy this weekend. Also, please pray for Art Pulowski. I do not know what has happened today. Even as we've been here again, they adjourned from yesterday and decided to do his court appearance again today because it was too late to complete yesterday. This is a very good sign that the judge did not adjourn it to a much later time. It is my understanding that Art Pulowski's wife and his son were able to speak directly to the judge about the impact of not having Art there on the church and what is going on. And, I'm hearing that Jason Kenney has been trying to do some good things and been giving money to churches, and is just basically saying that he is a Christian and, wants to do the right things. So one right thing that would be a really good telltale sign with that would be that he would have some say and intervene in what is going on with a political prisoner like Art Pulowski right in his province. Jason Kenney has the power to give a good word, to say something, to do what it takes to not have Canada be locking up pastors for no good reason and looking like idiots in front of the world. So if anybody wonders what province it is, it's Alberta under the leadership of Jason Kenney. So I hope that your great interest in bringing all the leaders of the churches together would also include standing for one Art Pulowski that is in jail and has been there for many, many days and treated horribly at times. So that should end, and it should end now. I want to leave you with a wonderful scripture, and it's in James 1, because we are going through some trials right now, for sure. And it says in verse 2, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him." Down here in verse 12, it says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." When you go down a little farther, verse 16, "Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows." Thank God. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created. Because I'm getting older in life, I've been through a few things. I've been through a few very fiery trials, and I have come to know that our trust in God is never misplaced. He does not skip a beat. He might show up later than we want him to. He might not fix things the way we want him to. But let me tell you, his ways are perfect. His law is just. His power is immense. And he is unstoppable, immutable, uncontrollable. Our God is in full charge of how this all plays out. So the other thing I'm very comforted by, and I want you to take this to heart as well, because some of the things that we go over bring anxiety when we see crazy things like digital currency and all of that. Be very assured of this, that the storm can be raging all around. But God has a way of keeping you and I, the ones who trust him, the ones who love him, God has a way of keeping us in exactly the right place, so that the peace that passes understanding is our portion. We are not moving about with all wind of doctrine and everything everybody's saying, and all of the naysayers and the the rumors and sad, horrible things that are happening. We don't have to be completely taken over by any of that. We have simply to trust in him. He has our backs. He has the way. He knows how to make the way straight, and you can trust him. Thanks for joining me. I've had a blast being with you. Have a very good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
You know, it's not easy to deliver the truth of what our sick world is doing, but for some of us, we feel that we have no choice. Because if we are silent about these abominable things, then we are letting evil go unchecked, and we cannot do that. For those of you wonderful people who are writing me and are sharing your encouragement, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for all the letters that you've been sending. Thank you for the donations and the support. I found out that in order to speak the truth, you have to become very, very strong. If you would go to my website at www.lauralynn.tv, you'll find all of the ways that you can contact me. Remember, my friends, all is well. All is well. Thanks for joining me.